Hello, I'm Sally Williams and welcome to the QFF Business Hour, where we discuss farm business issues. Join us on the last Wednesday of each month at 4 p.m. to engage with industry and professional business advisors to assist you in building your strategic management capacity to prepare for and manage business and climate risks, as well as improve economic, environmental and social resilience. I wish to begin today's episode by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land, seas and waters throughout Australia and pay respects to elders past, present and future. This session is made possible through the Future Drought Fund Farm Business Resilience Program, a jointly funded program by the Australian Government and the Queensland Drought and Climate Adaptation Program. In this episode of the QFF Farm Business Hour, we discuss priority risks being faced by the cotton industry. And now, finally, I'd like to welcome today's panellists. We have Michael Murray, General Manager, Cotton Australia. Hey, Michael.
How are you?
Great to have you on board. Renee Anderson, cotton grower from the Central Highlands. Thanks for joining us, Renee.
Thanks, Sally.
Andrew French, President, Dawson Valley Cotton Growers Association. Hey, Andrew.
Hey, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I know you've taken up your time because it's school holidays at the moment, so really impressed you can join us today and much appreciated. And also to Adam McVeigh, Silverleaf Farming, also joining us.
G'day, Sally and everyone.
Howdy. And joining us again, it's great to have you back, Jodie Knowlton, Partner, Business Services BDO.
Hi, Sally, and hi, everyone. Great to be back.
It's great to have you with us. Okay, now I'd just like to move on with our introduction. I'll get back to you all very soon. The cotton industry is one of Australia's most significant contributors to the agricultural sector, with the Department of Agriculture, Fisheries and Forestry estimating the gross value of cotton in 2022-23 reaching 3.5 billion Australian dollars. Australia is one of the world's top 4 cotton exporters, with a crop being grown by approximately 1,500 farmers in more than 150 regional communities across central and southern Queensland, northern central and southern New South Wales, northern Victoria and small areas of northern Queensland, northern Western Australia and also the Northern Territory. Approximately 90% of Australia's cotton businesses are family farms, producing about 80% of the crop. These families have often lived and worked in their communities for generations, and today's panellists are experts within the cotton industry. They're experienced in identifying and managing priority risks associated with cotton growing to enable cotton producers to remain competitive and thriving in the market. In 1991, cotton became the first Australian agricultural industry to benchmark its environmental performance. And more recently, it has been working towards developing sustainability targets. Okay, now to help us kick off today's session, I would like to bring in 3 of our panellists and growers to help us understand the major key business risks that are currently faced by them. We've got Andrew, Adam and Renee who are about to join us. Before I bring them in, I would like to formally introduce them so that you have a little bit of background knowledge on each of them. We have Andrew French. Andrew is a 3rd-generation cotton grower in Theodore, Central Queensland, currently in the final stages of purchasing the family farm from his parents. He is the president of the Dawson Valley Cotton Growers Association and a previous participant in a range of various industries related work groups. So great to have him on board. Adam McVeigh, Silverleaf Farming. Adam and his wife Edwina own and operate Silverleaf Farming in Murgon in South Burnett region and McAllister in the Darling Downs. The farming operation grows cotton and grain on about 1,000 hectares on properties at Baillie and McAllister with a focus on irrigation. Adam holds a Bachelor of Agricultural Science and is a Nuffield Scholar. And finally, Renee Anderson, cotton grower from the Central Highlands. Renee is a mixed cropping irrigation farmer from Emerald, growing a diverse range of crops, including cotton, chickpeas, mung beans, and also wheat on her 480 hectare operation, which she runs with her family. With 26 years experience in the Australian cotton industry, Renee has worked in entomology and farming systems research, agronomy, and also environmental management systems. So well experienced farmers we have on board with us now. Andrew, I'd love to start with you. Let's have a talk about some of the risks that you have identified. I'd love also to hear from you some solutions that you found helped you overcome these issues and what further changes that you see may be needed.
All right. Thanks, Sally. Yeah, look, one of the main risks I've identified on our place is the viability of our business. I previously mentioned we're just in the final stages of taking over the family farm, so it involves a fairly heavy buy-in price. So look, I suppose the way to mitigate this, look, just have to have a good understanding what our financial commitments are. It's involved having to do a fairly detailed budget. We've got a live cash flow budget we've developed. All our commitments are in there. All of our known expenses are in there, all related to each crop. Need to understand that although we predominantly grow cotton, we are an irrigation farm, so we have to be prepared to grow anything. Depends what makes the best money per hectare return for us. So this year it is cotton, but I mean, we do grow all sorts of crops at home, depending on what the markets are doing. So yeah, look, got the targets that I know I have to meet to cover my commitments. All the variability and of inputs we're getting at the moment, as they change, I upload them. At the back end of it, I have a good understanding of what a minimum sell price it has to be. So with that information, we're able to lock in forward contracts with the cotton, so we can maintain at least above a certain level there that need to be. Business literacy is another one I've identified. As most growers can probably attest to, we feel that we're pretty comfortable in growing crops, but we're not really comfortable in running a business. So never been formally trained on how to run that.
So how do you get around that, Andrew? Do you up train all the time? You're doing courses constantly, or?
I have done a couple of small courses. Well, really only one, but not really business related. But look, at the moment we are relying heavily on the accountant and the bank manager. I am trying to get myself enrolled in some small business courses as we speak. It's just trying to fit it into the timetable at home.
Yeah, while running at the same time. Yes.
Yeah. So look, I've learned a lot just through the budgeting. We have developed a small business plan as part of our takeover.
Yep.
But yeah, look, business literacy, I think, is a skill that I really need to improve on. So I am searching that out.
Yeah.
And working on that. It'll be a work in progress for the rest of my life, I'd imagine. I don't think I'll ever be fully on top of that.
Well, there's always something to keep learning, and there's always something new going on, isn't there, really?
Oh yeah, I think that's it's probably a good thing to keep in the back of your mind, that you're never going to know everything in life. So yeah, always keep absorbing information and be open to someone else tell you some new information and absorb it. Probably the last risk there I've identified is probably flooding. So we all farm floodplains, but recent times has highlighted how I can improve. So we have surveyed our country. We've got a digital footprint on file that we can change and to make a future plan for, but we need significant investment to do anything there. So that's a long-term plan. Short term, but we just got to maintain what we have and keep on top of the maintenance of the levees, the drains, the non-return valves, all that sort of thing. So that's probably the three that I've identified as my three main ones.
But it's I mean, obviously having a short-term plan is really important, but having the long-term is just as important, isn't it? Future. Yeah.
No, for sure. There's nothing wrong with having something on file. It doesn't cost a lot to get stuff surveyed and get a plan done up. The money's in executing it. So there's nothing wrong with having it on file. You can change it, you can play with it. But I think that's important for people to do. Have a good understanding of what they have and what they don't before they commit to something.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, that's part of the risk management, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Well, thank you, Andrew. I might bring Adam in now. Love to hear from you, Adam.
Thanks, Sally. Like every business owner, farmers are very exposed to any number of risks. So like to narrow it down to 3 key risks that I think are specific to farmers and very topical at the moment too. In particular is climate risks and specifically droughts and floodings, you know, the extremes and natural disasters.
Yeah.
Secondly is our access to markets and the impact that has on commodity pricing. And thirdly, the rising input costs, which everyone's exposed to at the moment. So I guess specifically with climate risk here in Queensland, everyone's more than familiar with you know, extended dry periods followed by severe rainfall and flooding. And I feel the real challenge here is capturing that water, storing it wisely, and then and maximising, you know, the efficient use of that in those extended dry periods. So I think, you know, for the broader industry and irrigators in general, the challenge is really to be a part of that conversation, looking at new infrastructure methods or schemes, whether that be on farm, improving storage on farm, or broader in the general schemes, and then looking at non-infrastructure methods as well. So, you know, improving efficiencies, whether that be in delivery or storage or application of the water. And then I guess on the market access, you know, that is a real challenge. There's a limited amount of things that we can do on farm. We rely heavily on our industry to promote our product. One of the great things as cotton growers we can do is be involved in the My BNP program.
Yeah.
And we've got some great merchants that really promote Australian cotton well alongside with Cotton Australia. And then finally, the rising input costs, and we're really riding the wave with this like everyone else. So I think it really just emphasises the importance of forward planning and really prioritising what's important. Is it making sure you get the best price or securing the product when you need it?
Yep. And we'll bring Michael in to have a bit more of a conversation around the plan in a moment, but I really want to hear from Renee. Thank you so much, Adam.
Oh, thanks, Sally. So like the other growers have just said, we're sort of farming within a climate vulnerable sort of industry. And here in the Central Highlands, our region has seen really significant change in rainfall, temperatures and extreme weather events as well over the last decade. So managing those risks has been, you know, something that we've really had to prioritise. It's also increased the risk of exotic pests and diseases, and therefore influences the rotational crops that we put into our farming system over the last few years. We've also, the third risk, as the other fellows have mentioned, is that significant increase in input costs for fertiliser, pesticides, and of course the increasing energy costs and transportation too, which then affects, you know, the market delivery supply chain. One of the things with the weather-related events that we've really sort of looked at over the last few years and sort of tried to plan for is just optimising those rainfall events and opportunity planting where possible, which means we've had to be quite, you know, timely and prepared for anything to go in at any particular time. One of the things that we can't do really is capture large storage of water. We're quite landlocked here on the channel scheme. So when we do have significant rainfall events, one of the things that we're actually trying to do, unlike many of the other farms, is actually slow the movement on the fields. We're trying to retain stubble, have grassed tail drains, and just slow everything down to reduce some of those impacts from large events.
So just flexibility is key for you, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It has been this last 6 years, Sally.
Very much so. And like you said, you might have to make sort of last minute decisions and just jump in quickly and act very quickly without much time or warning.
Yep. And yeah, certainly the last few crops, we've certainly made decisions within a week time frame. We've had a significant event with no allocation and then decided to plant, go in with a winter crop.
Yep. So I guess with your plan, you're always referring to it, aren't you? Getting back to it and checking and, you know, just needing it as your tool.
Yeah, that's right. We've got a plan that we've sort of sat down with our agronomists and our bank manager and also our accountant. But it's it's flexible and it's regularly visited and updated as things change.
Yep, yep. Thanks so much, Renee. Well, on that, I'd like to bring in Jody Knowlton now, Partner Business Services BDO. Jody actually joined us in one of our earlier episodes on the QFF Business Hour, and it's so lovely to have her back. She's a wealth of information and guidance and knowledge. Jody is a specialist in business advisory, strategy, business plans, business reviews and action plans with more than 20 years experience. Hi, Jody. I could see you actually nodding while you were listening to our farmers then.
Yeah, no, it's really good to hear the growers and what they're doing to try and mitigate some of their risks and really having that plan in relation to the business going forward. And I guess that's the beauty of having a business plan, and like both, Andrew, Adam and Renee articulated, all of them have business plans in relation to what they're going to try and do going forward. But the real power of it is really understanding from a family, from a business, where you're trying to get to, what those goals are that you're trying to set, and then and outlining how you're going to try and get there. And then with the risk side of things, actually working out, okay, what are some of those risks that our business are exposed to, and how can we try and mitigate that going forward? Is that a high priority right now? And then putting it into the plan, the budgets and everything like that Andrew said, is actually schedule out, okay, is that a short-term goal that we want to try and achieve to mitigate those risks that we've got in the business? Or is there a long-term that we want to try and work to or save up to then make sure that we can try and do that around the place? So that's the beauty of having a business plan in place. And I think that the farmers articulated that really well.
Yeah, they certainly did. Do any of you want to just add anything quickly before I move on to Michael at this stage? No, they've well and truly explained it all beautifully.
Very much so.
Yeah, they have. Thanks so much, Jody. Well, I will move on to Michael now. Michael Murray is the General Manager of Cotton Australia, as I mentioned earlier, the peak body for the Australian cotton industry. And Michael, along with other industry representatives, worked closely with the federal Queensland government to shape the Farm Business Resilience Program. Now, Michael, the Best Management Practices Program, MyBMP, which we've already mentioned, we've heard the farmers mention it. What exactly is it and how important is it to the cotton growers and their adoption to improve sustainable practices and innovations?
Yeah, thanks, Sally. Our MyBMP program is now roughly 25 years old. And so you scroll back to the mid-90s, and cotton had really probably quite a deserved reputation as being a very high chemical user and some pretty nasty chemicals as well. And I think long before the term social license was invented, we were under pressure from a social license point of view. We had to clean up our act, and we had to clean up our act in a way that was transparent. Now, the good news is, as an aside, since 1991, we've reduced our chemical use by 97%. So we've done a fantastic job. But integral to that was what was then Best Management Practice Program, now MyBMP. It's in its simplest form, a checklist of over 400 practices if they applied to everyone, where growers can basically go through and see if they meet that requirement. And behind each checklist is a whole suite of resources that will help them meet that requirement if they don't meet it. So, I guess it does three key things. One, in some ways, in talking about farm business plans, in some ways it's a bit of a de facto or partial plan anyhow. So it covers some of that planning process, making sure you're doing what you should do and having the resources to help you do it. So really good on-farm tool. Look, quite commonly we hear from growers and they say, oh, why do I need to do this? I already do all these things. And when they go through it, they genuinely do find they're probably doing 85 or 90%, but there's some things that they're not, and it brings them to their attention, particularly their legal requirements. So one role is its on-farm role. I spend a lot of my time talking to government, and having a best management program that's got backing by the industry is extremely powerful. If we can show that we've come to government with solutions and a process for making sure that we're actually doing the best possible job, they're more likely to lay off the heavy hand of regulation. So certainly our program is well known by politicians and other decision makers. And very importantly now, and particularly becoming more so, but over the last decade, ongoing trend by our brands and consumers to want to know, was the input, in our case cotton that they're using, was it produced sustainably? And for us, participation in the MyBMP program and being accredited, I've got to point out that as a grower goes through all those practices, they have to provide evidence that they're meeting it, and they need to have an independent audit. When they go through that process, they're then eligible to sell their cotton as part of the International Better Cotton Program. And that's where a whole range of brands and other partners have come together and said, we want to be sure that we're getting sustainable cotton. And today, better cotton accounts for about 30% of the world market. So, you really almost have to be in it if you don't want to be excluding yourself out of market.
And like you're saying, the consumer is just looking for it now. They're not going to buy unless they see that. They're looking for that, makes a decision. It makes them make the decision knowing that it's there.
Absolutely. And I must admit, I was probably one of those people that thought that this might be a little bit of a fad and it might go away. It's not going away. It definitely is. I like to term a mega trend in what's happening in global trade and sustainability. And we have to be able to demonstrate our credibility.
Yep, absolutely. And Renee, I'd love to bring you in here. What are the key topics covered by my BMP, and what are the benefits of the program, as a cotton farmer?
Yeah, sure, Sally. So our farm's actually been certified for the last 22 and a half years.
Congratulations to you.
Yeah, we went through right from the start and it used to be a fairly significant manual that weighed a ton to carry around. One of the things that I really love is the BMP program is backed by the cotton industry researchers, and we've got technical leads which sort of ensure that those checklist items that we're going through and providing evidence to on our farm are current and backed by science as well. And I think that's really important. The other thing that's really important in our region here in Central Queensland, we're in a reef catchment. So BMP is recognised by the Queensland government, and it assists us as growers to meet any of our legislative requirements, as well as those recognised industry best management practices. So it incorporates 10 modules, including workplace health and safety, human resources for ourselves and our employees. We also go through soil health, sustainable and natural landscapes, biosecurity, water management, just to name a few. And it's also recognised, as Mike said, globally. It's definitely not going away. And the certification programs that it links in with BCI is future-proofing our markets for our produce that we sell at the end of the day. And consumers now are very conscious and environmentally aware, and they want to know where their products are coming from. They want that traceability. They want to have a look at the sustainability goals that farmers are working towards as well. And that certainly meets their requirements, as well as looking at, our sustainability goals here on the farm as well. The other thing, as Mike mentioned, is the certification program. It's independently audited, and which provides like rigor and transparency around the program as well, which I think is really important to have a sustainability framework that's sort of got that checklist and, got independent audits that are checking off at what growers are doing.
Anything you'd like to add there, Michael?
Just, I suppose, a real practical example where having my BMP, and Renee basically touched on it, the Queensland government has put in a whole range of regulations to protect the reef, and some of them are very specific regulations and rules and restrictions on certain agricultural industries. And we know that cotton hasn't been targeted by those very specific requirements because of my BMP. And if we go back a little bit longer, there was a requirement for people to do water management plans under certain circumstances. And we were able to get an exemption from that if someone was my BMP accredited, because they were already covering it. So look, it's a really, really important tool. And I think going forward, that access to world markets is just absolutely critical. And it's my BMP underpins that for us as an industry.
Yeah. Absolutely. And Cotton Australia has been participating in the Farm Business Resilience Program. How's that benefited cotton producers?
Well, so it's fairly early days for the industry. We've really only started to promote it very heavily in the last couple of months. We've recently had a series of workshops helped out by BDO and QFF at St George and Gundawindi and Dalby. Really good interest from growers there, taking up that opportunity to sit down and do the plan. And it's a little bit like my BNP. I think if you spoke to a lot of growers, they'd say, oh yeah, we do a business plan and it's all in my head. And just going through that discipline of sitting down and writing it up and thinking about the what ifs just provides that extra level of rigor about the process. And all plans need to be flexible, and what you write today may not necessarily be what happens, but you need that flexibility. But I think one of the things that when QFF and Cotton Australia and others were negotiating this program with the Queensland and federal government was, look, it's great, but if you think that without a significant carrot, growers are just going to sit down and write business plans, you're dreaming that they've got other things that are going to be higher priorities, no matter how good argument there is for it. So I think the real carrot is that if a farm writes and prepares an accredited plan and there's assistance available, both financial and professional, to get those plans done, and if the plan says, part of my approach is to do X, Y, and Z, and that requires financial expenditure. In Queensland, you can go to the Q Rider and get a grant of up to $50,000 on a total project spend of $200,000. So, look, there's a real financial incentive over and above just the value of doing that planning. And I think, Andrew and Renee and Adam have really highlighted how important that planning has been for them.
Yeah. And Jody, you're delivering this for some of the producers as well?
Yeah, so we're partnering with Cotton Australia and QFF to actually develop the template business plan. But the key work that we've done in there is actually sit down with the growers and a sample of the growers and actually work through what are some of those key risks that are exposed within the industry, and working through to try and identify what they are as a bit of a thought-provoking activity to go, okay, these are some of the risks, these are some of the specific risks within those areas in there that apply to the cotton industry specifically. And then here's some of the actions that could be taken in relation to help mitigate those risks going forward. And when Michael said that we've gone out and done some of those workshops in the regions, which was fantastic to get out there, that was the core stuff that the core piece of information, the core help that they really valued, is going, okay, I've got this plan in front of me to try and articulate what those risks are. They know it, but to have some of those prompters in relation to it has been really helpful for them to then kind of pull it together. And the key part of the action plan of the business plan then is what actions are we going to take because of that? And the template that we've developed in there lays out from the strategy that you've got for a whole of business through the risks that you've got that you're exposed to then what actions are you going to look to put in place with a bit of a timeline and everything like that to actually get those things in place to help the business going forward on all different elements of risk within the business. So the few that we're speaking about today, but then some of those other ones that might be more in the back of the mind, but still really important for the business.
Yeah, exactly.
Sally, can I just pass some comments
Adam.
on that too? So I really love the concept of this program, and it's a really proactive approach to being resilient. And the whole scenario of a farmer on the news in the middle of a drought, the whinging farmer scenario, it's all too common. And I think, this program really encourages people to put a lot of thought into what happens if this happens, and you can put a plan in place. So when the inevitable happens, and, there will be another drought, there will be another flood, there's a plan in place, and you can follow it step by step. And it's not going to solve everything, but it's certainly a good approach to be proactive, I think.
Yeah, and just not sort of be living in fear the whole time. You've at least turned over the stone that this may happen. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And like Michael said, there's a big carrot there at the moment with this program. So get involved.
Yeah, absolutely. 50,000 is a great amount.
The other benefit is actually the articulation of it, getting it out of the head and down on paper, that then if something happens around the place, then other family members or other people within the business can actually understand what the direction is that you're trying to get to with either the specific actions that are happening, but then tying it into the bigger picture as to where the business is trying to get to. So that communication piece as part of it is really important as well, because like everyone said earlier, there's a lot of it up in the head, but just getting it down on paper is really important. So
and often it's just in one person's head.
Yes.
It's a way of sharing the load and making sure everyone's on the same page.
And that's what we found when we did.
I was just going to say that clear and concise communication and having a plan is really important. Risk management strategy in itself, everyone can be on board and come along with the plan.
Yeah, it's almost a risk not being on the same page. That in itself, like
Absolutely.
you're saying. Yes, yeah, very true.
Yeah, there
Yeah.
was different aspects when we did some of those workshops out there that only maybe one party in the business came along and they're like, oh, I can answer this section, but I can't necessarily answer this section because that's where, you know, someone else's role within the business is. So to actually be able to pull that together and understand how it all comes together was really valuable.
So there's a real collective effort.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Well, fabulous. If everyone's right now, I might move on to, because I know this business hour is going to go very quickly. So we better move on to our next topic, which is water management. Water management is an integral component, of course, in the cotton farming industry, and one that has seen significant improvements across all cotton operations, with latest industry monitoring showing that Australian cotton growers have continued to significantly increase yields and decrease irrigation inputs. And to help us understand the importance of managing this vital resource successfully, I really want to bring back in mainly our growers to have this conversation. I might start with you again, Renee, if I could bring you in. How can seasonal changes in water availability affect cotton growers, and what are some of the solutions to mitigate it?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Sally. So water for our society, town, stock and the environment is at the core of sustainability in development here in Queensland. And it's prioritised over medium security water licence holders that we use on our irrigation farms. But having access to that water for irrigation also helps us to adapt to climate variabilities and maintains a healthy landscape within the ecosystem that we're farming within too. So some of the things that we can do with that water management is ensuring, you know, we've got good quality water, we're using it efficiently, not only the water, but the soil health and, you know, the nutrient management. They're all interlinked and they're really essential for our crop production. And improving those efficiencies is, you know, something that we're looking at all the time alongside crop rotations. And it's just one of the ways that we can manage some of that seasonal variability. And including things like the technology that we use on farms to improve those efficiencies and monitoring and sensoring. So things like canopy sensors, moisture probes, and also using satellite imagery and data, which really helps with the monitoring and the application of the water that we do use on farm.
And the tech that's available to you now, that's just improving, you know, constantly, isn't it?
Yeah, it certainly is, and it sort of updates every year, and there's new stuff to consider, and you know that's another thing that we sort of have to take into consideration in our farm plan. How is this new technology actually going to fit? Is it going to work for us? And you know what are the benefits of introducing something new onto the farm as well?
Yep. And Adam and Andrew, I've just got a couple of questions I'd love to run by you here. You know, what impact does high season water variability have on the cotton industry? And also, how do exhausted water supplies and inefficient water infrastructure really impact, well, you yourselves and the cotton farming industry in general, do you think? I'll start with you, Adam.
Look, Sally, I think on the variable seasonal availability, that can be a real challenge from a practical farming sense, making decisions on farm, you know, how much ground do you get ready? And you know, most farmers are pretty adept at making those decisions. Another big challenge is the budgeting, and particularly at the moment with supply chains being like they are, the uncertainty of how much water will be available, and then knowing what you need to forward order with equipment. You know, that's a big challenge as well. The seasonal water availability one, it certainly has a bigger impact on the broader industry, and that's a real challenge, maintaining that capacity in the industry. So not just on farm, but the resellers, the agronomists, the ginners. You know, if we go through extended dry periods, there's a lot of capacity in there that if it leaves the industry, it takes a long time to rebuild, and there's a lot of knowledge, and that is probably one of the bigger challenges, I think, for the broader industry. Yeah.
And you said yourself, you know, you've got to do a lot of forward planning, you know, pre-ordering, et cetera, et cetera. That can be difficult if you've got a weather change and you've got a whole oversupply of fertilizer or something.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And you have to be really careful about that. I mean, you know, ordering something and then not ending up needing it is a real challenge. So, you know, the whole COVID scenario has really put another spin on that at the moment, when it's just extended supply times again.
Yep.
I might just jump in there to just provide a little bit of context, I suppose, for the industry. just 2 seasons ago, at the end of the last round, 1920, we produced just 590,000 bales, our smallest crop in 40 years. 2 seasons later, the crop that is almost completely picked now, although even though we're in September, there's still a bit of cotton coming off. It'll be 5.5 million bales. So we're talking almost a 10-time turnaround in 2 seasons. Now that obviously presents all sorts of risk and management challenges at a farm level, and Adam's just spoken about that. Yeah, how much machinery should I have? How much should I try to plant? How do I actually keep employees on that? It just flows through the whole industry. But then you take it to the next level. How do we make sure that there's enough trucks for big seasons to get the gin cotton to port? How do we get the shipping to get it out? How do we make sure that fertilizer and chemical inputs are all right? I mean, the challenges. The cotton industry has always had this great variability in water and moisture availability, and therefore the size of our crops. So we do a pretty good job managing it, but you can't underestimate how difficult it is when you can see almost a 10-time turnaround in just 2 seasons.
Yeah, and it's difficult.
I was just going to mention too, Sally, one of the other areas that it really impacts in, those extended drought periods is the research and dollar levies that farmers pay into as well. And it makes it a little bit more tricky for R&D, for those projects that are sort of, they're generally over a 3-year period. Some of them are a little bit longer. So the planning that goes in behind that can be really difficult in those dry years, or the years that have less cotton as well.
Yep. And Andrew?
Look, the other guys have summed it up pretty well. Michael, especially there. I think the variability of water across the eastern seaboard really highlights the difference in the cotton production. I think if I was going to add anything, as a cotton grower and farmers in Australia, these farms aren't developed specifically for cotton. So in years of drought, as a grower, I think it's important to identify what water entitlements you do have for that season. And if it's a drought year, it won't be much, but try to make the best out of what you do have, and put it all on paper, put it in a budget. What will return you the best return per megalitre for what you have, and go with that. It doesn't mean you have to grow cotton. You might be better off growing 5 or 6 times more irrigated wheat than you would do the same than a fifth of the area of cotton. So stuff like that. Inefficient and infrastructure and impact cotton farming. In regards to that question, I think I'd encourage growers to in every valley is different with the water rules and legislation. So I think it's important to try and get your head around the rules and regulations for your valley. Have a clear understanding of that, and how the water flows, how the water ordering works, how your unsupplemented water take, and all of that, and just be prepared to react and accordingly through the year. I think that's probably, that's the best. That's all I can really think of. So just again being able to be flexible and just sort of think on the spot. And if you've got to make a quick decision, then jump in and do it.
And that's the beauty of that business plan, is actually having that written down as being one of the mitigating factors in relation to that water allocation kind of piece, is going, this is some of the options we have available to then be able to move forward with it. So
so no surprises. well there's always surprises.
On understanding the rules in your valley. Every serious irrigator has basically got millions of dollars of asset tied up in water entitlement. And sometimes it surprises me that they may not necessarily fully understand the rules that apply in their valley. And that can make a huge difference. And I guess particularly in the southern part of our industry, but even coming through Queensland, the water market is now playing a more and more important role. And I think people need to get that sort of understanding of the water market and how that operates as well in their area, because again, those things can make a huge difference just by simply understanding the rules and maximising your opportunities that are available under those rules.
Yeah, and I guess you've got to kind of have a good track record of the history as well. What's the patterns?
Look at the history, but some people say that the water management is really complex, and it's not uncomplex, but yeah, it's not that difficult if you sit down and work it through. Don't try to understand the whole country's rules; that they're all different, but understand the rules in your valley.
Yeah, so good point made by Andrew. Thanks so much. Now, we've been touching on supply chain, but we'd like to focus on it a little bit more because we've got the time to do it. With Australia being one of the world's largest exporters of raw cotton, exporting 100% of production, I would like to touch on the importance of strengthening supply chains. And Michael, is it time to redesign the way supply chains in the cotton industry work and reconsider what is prioritised to help ensure that critical environmental, economic and social needs are met?
I'm not sure how much we need to redesign, but I'm sure they're going to be tinkered with all along. You know, blockchain and traceability and sustainability will continue to play, you know, greater and greater roles. And there's some great technology that's coming along those lines in the area of traceability that can back up those sustainability claims. But I guess in terms of what we've seen in world instability, COVID and geopolitics over the last few years, things can change very rapidly. And, you know, cotton 3, 4, 5 years ago, 70% of our cotton went into China. A couple of years ago, and the Chinese government didn't make it public, but they put what we've described as soft ban on Australian cotton. So this season, less than 5% of our cotton will go into China. You know, we've had to be able to adapt and make sure that, you know, we do have a good spread of markets. Unfortunately, the quality and reputation of Australian cotton has meant that, you know, we have been able to close that gap that was made by having a high reliance on China. But, you know, we need to remember that lesson. We're going through great challenges right at the moment in absolutely, you know, able to ship the cotton. Getting shipping containers. We went back to 1930s technology the other day, where what they call break bulk loaded a ship out of Brisbane, where basically the cotton bales went in bulk into the hold rather than into containers. So we've got to be flexible. I'm not sure whether that is the actual solution, that one, but being flexible. And I do think as an industry, we have to embrace the demands of consumers for sustainability and traceability. There's some really great technology that helps with that traceability, and just work with that and keep it broad. On the other side of the supply chain, getting those inputs in, you know, we probably do need to restore at least a degree of local manufacturing. We're seeing the closure of the Gibson Island nitrogen plant at the end of the year. That's going to put extra challenges on us for urea. I know from conversations that right at the moment, getting urea, you know, the importers are really reluctant to bring in any that hasn't got a firm contract against it, because they don't want to be caught short if there's price movements. Where once upon a time you could probably have rocked into your local supplier and just decide I wanted 20 tonne or 50 tonne or 10 tonne. These days you've got to think about it in forward order. So growers have to do it at that level. And as an industry body, we spend a fair bit of time briefing major suppliers on what we think the next year's crop's going to be, just giving them a heads up at what sort of demand is likely to be required. But yeah, look, these last 2 years, when it comes to supply chains, have been challenging for everyone.
And how's it impacted our growers? Adam, can I ask you that question now?
Yeah, I could probably mirror a lot of what Michael said there. Like the supply chain issues aren't unique to farmers, and certainly not in agriculture. It's right throughout every single supply chain. The whole COVID thing has really thrown a big spanner in the works.
Yeah.
The biggest thing I think on farm that we can do is communication. You know, if the guys that we're placing orders with, if they're aware of what we require early on in the season, they can do the best forward planning that they can. And then on the other end, it's financing everything as well. So it's communicating right through from agronomists, resellers, bankers, making sure everyone's on the same page and ready to probably react and be a little bit flexible. You know, not everything's going to go to plan. So it's certainly not an easy road to navigate.
Yeah, but again, just thinking it through all the time, rethinking it.
Yeah, absolutely. And having a fallback position, I guess, you know, ideally having a backup plan as well.
Yeah. And Andrew, can I bring you in here, or Renee, do you want to add to this conversation?
Yeah, I can only add to it. yeah, like Michael said, I wouldn't, reinforce that. Yeah, it's pretty bang on, I believe. But yeah, as a grower, look, stuff like fertilizer, urea in particular. I think once you've made a decision to grow a crop, understand what requirements or what yield targets you're going to be targeting. You know, you have a good understanding then of what nutrition requirement you're going to have for that crop, and a timing, and get into that reseller as soon as you can, and get your name on some, and plan for it, and be prepared to order it for 2-3 months in advance. I think that you're going to lose more money by not having it than out of fear of paying too much for it. So I think just need to get your name on it to secure it, because without it you're not going to perform too well at all. So that's pretty much all I can add.
And the current increases in supply chain costs, Renee?
Yeah, we've sort of had, it's unusual sort of season coming into the Central Highlands. We've still got no water allocation. We've got a very reduced carryover, which just got bumped down yesterday for next week as well. So that planning that we would normally put in place has, it's been a challenge, to say the least. We know that the fertilizer costs and the fuel costs and everything has increased, and then you're really not sure. Like, we've actually put in a very small amount. We've got 100 hectares planted, and we're not sure if we're going to have some more go in. So that planning of pre-buying, which we would normally do the season before, at the end of the previous season, hasn't happened this year. It is in the plan, and we've sort of got money budgeted for it, but it's a wait and see at this stage. So revisiting that farm budget often, based on what's happening, is fairly important.
Yeah, and we've also had a comment from one of our listeners here, also the change in extra costs in farm machinery and infrastructure. Anybody like to add to that? Gas, fertilizer.
The cost of it has gone up enormously, but also the lead times in ordering. I think it's not uncommon now, if you want particular tractors, you might have to order it a year or more in advance. And I noticed the chat makes a comment about Big N, which was a gas nitrogen supply, with the closure of Gibson Island and only one other producer in Australia. There'll be some areas of the country, we understand it, who have used Big N for a long time, that won't be able to access an alternative gas product. They'll have to go to granular, as the chat suggests. So look, there's plenty of supply chain challenges.
Yeah, I might pass comment too. Like, the machinery examples are a really great one, as far as being able to source what you need, and not only that, but being able to lock in a price. That's a real challenge at the moment. Yeah, g'day, Meg. Thanks for the question.
Yeah, so with machinery, it's just, there's an increase all the time going at the moment with machinery, or it's probably even availability.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And probably the flip side of that as well, the impact on the secondhand market as well. So the used market for equipment is really tight at the moment as well. So, that's probably an unexpected positive out of this. If you're trying to sell older equipment, usually it depreciates. At the moment, some of that equipment's actually gone up in value.
Yeah, and it's still being moved on and sold.
Yeah.
It is, but finding parts for some of those older bits of gear have been quite difficult as well.
Yeah, I can imagine so, because parts are just a constant drama, aren't they? Getting hold of the parts. Absolutely. Okay, would anyone else like to add to this before we move on a little bit further with supply chain? It doesn't look like we have. Well, we've talked about the volatile seasonal pricing and how it affects you all. Does anyone want to add a little bit more to that?
Well, I guess the great thing about the cotton industry in terms of volatile pricing for cotton itself, and anyone watching the market over the last, certainly the last month, it's been jumping around $10, $20, $30 a day. It seems to be particularly volatile at the moment. But as an industry, we've got a long history of forward marketing. So if you do have a good price opportunity, and you know that you've got the water to produce 2 or 3 years out, you can lock in a price 2 or 3 years out. I think Andrew may have earlier made a comment about the importance of knowing what your costs are and what the price is that you need to be in front. It may not always be the top price, but it's a price that keeps you afloat. I don't know whether you want to follow up on that, Andrew.
Yeah, look, yeah, I think just having a clear understanding of what costs and commitments you do have for your business to stay afloat, to secure your business and the health of your business doesn't necessarily mean locking in the top price every time.
Mhm.
You know, it means securing your future. So, like in my situation, my financial commitments, if I said I was going to average 10.5 bales a hectare, I got to be $650 odd a bale as a minimum average sell price to really keep my business to a level that what I think is a normal, usable income. My earnings after earnings before interest, tax, depreciation, like your EBITDA numbers. So at the moment, the next year's cotton crop prices are just getting down to that 650. They've been well into the 700. So look, I held off marketing my cotton until it was in that 700 range, which it had been, and that's when I made the decision to grow cotton. So I sort of locked a fair bit of cotton in to secure my decision, if that makes sense. Like it, I didn't sell it at the top, but I sold it above where I needed to be. So I know where I'm at with what I got to cover, and yeah, I think it's made my life, made my sleep better. So yeah.
And that's what it's all about, isn't it, Jody?
Yeah, absolutely. It's really having that plan down on paper, working it through and then being comfortable with where you're getting to. So like Andrew said, understanding that and being able to have the plan around it lets you be more comfortable within your business, because you've got direction as to where you're trying to get to, and knowing that you're going to be okay, but with the flexibility.
Absolutely. And you want to be able to sleep at night.
Absolutely.
You want to be able to sleep at night. You farmers are absolutely, honestly amazing at what you do, and we're so grateful for what you provide us. But you've got a life to live as well, and you need to stay well and healthy mentally and physically in every way. So important to be able to have that peace of mind as much as possible, and just having it in out of your head and into a plan that you can refer to on a daily basis, with everyone involved, is just key. It's so important. Now, before we close, I'm going to ask you for your little words of wisdom that you can share with our listeners today, because I'm sure you've all got a little gem that is going to be super valuable to everybody. But before I do ask you and we close, because we're nearly at the hour, would anyone else like to add something at this stage that they just haven't had a chance to say before we wrap it up? Anything from you, Michael?
No, pretty good, thanks, Sally.
You've covered it all.
I can say my audio won't get much better. It's just started raining here again, unfortunately. I hate to hear about the rain.
Speaking of rain, oh well, and my apologies to everyone for sounding a little nasally, but hey, there are many colds going around this country at the moment, but we're all used to that, aren't we? Okay, well, I'm going to firstly ask Jody for your words of wisdom. Jody Knowlton, Partner Business Services BDO, who's been with us and been a wealth of information. What is your little tip for our listeners? What's your take home?
Just to get that plan out of your head and just start putting it down on paper. That's the key thing. It's just start it, because it seems a bit daunting beforehand, but if you can start, then that gets you on the way.
And I guess for a lot of people, it is that big step, isn't it? Is actually starting, just getting that piece of paper out and writing down some notes.
I think someone said it earlier, farmers don't like paperwork. I think it's just seeing the value of actually having that plan available to you and everyone within the family. There's the intrinsic value of having that there, but then the carrot with the 50 grand that's available to be able to help with some of these mitigation plans going forward that QWriter is offering at the moment, which might be a little bit more of an incentive. And there's some financial benefits that can help with getting professional advice to help with getting those plans in place too.
Yeah, and I think, just starting a plan, it stimulates, conversation and your thought processes, and it also opens doors to opportunity. Like you're saying here, $50,000 is, it's a great value to many. And if you don't start that plan and start thinking like that, then you might miss an opportunity.
Absolutely.
Fabulous. Okay. Michael Murray, General Manager, Cotton Australia.
Well, I'm going to indulge and have three. One, if you're part of the cotton industry, but you're not fully accredited with MyBMP, get on and get accredited. It's your ticket to long-term access to markets, if for nothing else. Got lots of other benefits, but that's an absolutely important one. Shameless advertising. This is all about the Farm Business Resilience Planning Program. If you haven't enrolled in the program, please enrol for your regional managers. We want to get these plans out. We want to make sure you get access to that funding to implement your plans. And finally, it's reiterating something I said earlier, but if you're an irrigator producer, know the water rules in your valley, know them inside out, know how to get the most out of them, and also know your water market, how it operates and what particular rules apply.
Okay, well done. We love all three of those, Michael. Thank you. And cotton grower from the Central Highlands, Renee Anderson.
Thanks, Sally. My little wisdom tip is prioritise planning, but be prepared to be flexible because things change. And, something that we've really sort of fallen back on at the moment is opportunity cropping. But you need your team. So, make sure you've had a chat to your agronomist, have a chat to your bank manager, have a chat to your accountant, and make sure everyone's on board. And so plan and prepare for flexibility in that plan as well.
Yeah, and just again, we haven't sort of really talked too much about the team because it is very much a team effort. You're not working on your own here. So very important to make sure everyone's in your team are across, each stage and all parts of the plan. So really good little tip there. And Andrew French, President, Dawson Valley Cotton Growers Association.
Yep. Look, the uncertain times. So price rises, volatility and all of that. Best way to make sense of all of that is put it on paper, put in a budget, have a look what you can get, what contracts you can get, make sense of it that way. If it's not worth growing, it's not worth growing. So just don't bite off too much you can chew and make it, just have an understanding what you can and can't do and do that.
And a practical attitude.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Love it. Thank you so much. And finally, Adam McVeigh, Silverleaf Farming.
Yeah, I think be patient, be persistent, and there's always a way.
And be positive. You just missed that one as well, because you are. That's a great tip as well, and a lovely one to finish on. Well, we're just about to come to a close now. I've got 2 minutes to wrap up. So again, thank you to all our listeners, everyone who's tuned in. We've loved having you on board, and we've had a question there too, which is great. Thanks, Meg, for your question. And again, finally, to all our panelists, it's as I said before, where would we be without you? We're so grateful to all our farmers, and it's just lovely to be able to have this conversation with you and to be able to help other farmers as well. So thanks again. And just before I let you all go, I just want to remind you of our next QFF Business Hour. It's on Wednesday, the 26th of October, again at 4 p.m. And we'll be discussing Walking the Wire and the Walking the Wire e-kit. It's an important resource, and it's delivered by the Australian Farmers Federation and supported by the Queensland government. And it actually assists rural women to become financially prepared and secure within the industry. So great topic. So I'd love everyone to come on board for that one. So don't forget to register. I'm Sally Williams. Thanks again for listening. And I really look forward to seeing you in the next QFF Business Hour. Take care.